For 15 years, she buried a secret so deep that not even a billion-dollar empire could uncover it. But when her daughter's heart stopped beating on an operating table, that secret became the only thing standing between life and death, and the man she'd erased from their lives held the key in his very veins. Welcome to Stories by Jason. If you're settled in and ready for a good story, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I've got another exciting story coming your way tomorrow, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for the love and support. You're truly appreciated, and I'm so grateful to have you here with me. The fluorescent lights of Bayview Medical Center's Pediatric Oncology Wing hummed with a frequency that made Jessica Morgan's teeth ache. Or perhaps that was just the terror. She'd been sitting in the blue plastic chair outside Dr. Reeves' office for 23 minutes, watching the second hand on the wall clock tick forward with the mechanical precision of a countdown timer. Through the frosted glass door, she could see shadows moving. Dr. Reeves, the hematologist they'd flown in from Johns Hopkins, possibly another specialist whose title she'd already forgotten in the blur of the last 48 hours. 48 hours ago, Emma had been fine, laughing at dinner, complaining about her calculus homework, making plans to visit MIT in the spring because she wanted to study artificial intelligence, just like the father she didn't know she had. 47 hours ago, Emma had collapsed in the school cafeteria. 46 hours ago, Jessica had received the call that would shatter everything. Your daughter is in the ICU. Her spleen is enlarged. Her liver is failing. We need you here immediately. The door opened. Dr. Reeves looked like she'd aged a decade since their last conversation. The hematologist beside her, Dr. Patel, Jessica remembered now, carried a tablet and wore the expression of a woman about to deliver a death sentence. Ms. Morgan, Dr. Reeves began, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Please sit. Jessica's legs moved on autopilot. The room smelled like antiseptic and despair. We have Emma's results, Dr. Patel said, setting the tablet on the desk so Jessica could see the screen filled with numbers and graphs that meant nothing to her. She has hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis, HLH. The word sounded like a foreign language. Jessica's throat constricted. What does that mean? It's a rare genetic immune disorder, Dr. Reeves explained, her voice gentle but urgent. Emma's immune system is essentially attacking her own body, her blood cells, her organs, everything. The fever, the organ swelling, the rapid deterioration we've seen. It's all consistent with HLH. Jessica's hands gripped the armrests. Can you treat it? The doctors exchanged a look that made Jessica's stomach drop. HLH is fatal without aggressive intervention, Dr. Patel said. We've started immunosuppressive therapy, but it's only buying time. Days, maybe a week. The only cure is a bone marrow transplant from a matched donor. Then we find a donor, Jessica said quickly, desperately. We get her on the registry, Ms. Morgan, Dr. Reeves leaned forward. The best chance, often the only chance, for a successful match in HLH cases is a biological parent or sibling. The genetic markers are so specific that unrelated donors almost never work. Do you understand what I'm telling you? The room tilted. Jessica understood perfectly. She understood that she'd spent 15 years protecting a secret that was now going to kill her daughter. Her father, Jessica whispered. We'll need to test you first, Dr. Patel said, already standing. But if you're not a match, we need to contact Emma's biological father immediately. Every hour counts. 3 hours later, Jessica sat in Emma's ICU room, watching her daughter sleep under the harsh glow of medical equipment. The girl's face was flushed with fever, her dark hair plastered to her forehead. Even unconscious, Emma looked like him. The sharp jawline, the slight widow's peak, the long fingers that were currently hooked up to an IV drip. Jessica had spent 15 years trying not to see Daniel Harrison in their daughter's face. Now it was all she could see. The tablet in Jessica's lap displayed the test results Dr. Reeves had delivered an hour ago with barely concealed desperation. You're not a match. We need the father. Now. Jessica's fingers trembled as she opened her laptop and typed the name she'd avoided searching for 15 years. Daniel Harrison. The screen flooded with results. Forbes, Harrison Technologies CEO Daniel Harrison, named Tech Innovator of the Decade. TechCrunch, how Daniel Harrison built a $10 billion empire in AI and quantum computing. Bloomberg, the man who made machine learning accessible. There were photos, so many photos. Daniel at tech conferences, shaking hands with presidents, standing on stages at product launches. Older now, lines around his eyes, gray threading through his dark hair, but unmistakably the man she'd loved 16 years ago. The man she'd abandoned. The man she'd never told he had a daughter. Jessica clicked on a video from a TED Talk he delivered 6 months ago. His voice filled the hospital room, confident, passionate, brilliant. At Harrison Technologies, we believe in truth, Daniel was saying on screen, his hands gesturing with the same enthusiasm she remembered from their late-night conversations in graduate school. Truth in data, truth in relationships, truth in the impact our technology has on the world, because without truth, we have nothing. Jessica closed the laptop before she could hear more. The irony was a knife twisting in her chest. She'd built 15 years of their daughter's life on a lie she told herself was protection. Daniel had been 24 when she'd gotten pregnant, brilliant, ambitious, on the verge of defending his doctoral thesis and launching what would become Harrison Technologies. She'd been 23, drowning in student loans, terrified of derailing his future. So she'd left, transferred schools, changed her number, disappeared into a different life. She told herself it was selfless. She told herself Emma was better off. She told herself 1,000 justifications that were now choking her. Mom. Emma's voice was weak, barely a whisper. Jessica was at her bedside instantly, gripping her daughter's hand. Hey baby, I'm here. Emma's eyes, Daniel's eyes, that same sharp green, struggled to focus. What's happening to me? Jessica wanted to lie. Wanted to say everything would be fine, that this was just a bad flu, that they'd be home by the weekend. But she'd lied enough. You're really sick, sweetheart, Jessica said, smoothing Emma's hair back. But we're going to fix this, I promise. The doctors said, Emma's breath rattled, they said I need a transplant. You do? From you? Jessica's vision blurred with tears. No, baby, I'm not a match. Emma's fingers tightened weakly around her mother's hand. Then who? The question Jessica had been dreading. The question she could no longer avoid. Your father, Jessica whispered. Emma's eyes widened, confusion cutting through the fever haze. My father, but you said. I know what I said, Jessica's voice cracked. I lied. Your father, he's alive, and I'm going to find him. Who is he? Jessica looked at her daughter. This brilliant, beautiful girl who loved quantum physics and terrible puns, who wanted to change the world with artificial intelligence, who deserved so much more than the mother who'd kept her from her father and the father who'd never known she existed. Someone who can save you, Jessica said. She didn't add the rest, if he doesn't hate me too much to try. Harrison Technologies occupied the top 15 floors of the Millennium Tower in downtown San Francisco, a gleaming monument to innovation and success. Jessica had never been here before, had actively avoided it, the same way she'd avoided every article, every interview, every trace of Daniel Harrison for 15 years. Now, standing in the marble lobby with its waterfall walls and holographic directory, she felt like an intruder in a world that should have been partially hers, partially Emma's. The security guard at the front desk looked up with practiced professional disinterest. Can I help you? Jessica gripped the manila folder containing Emma's medical records, the DNA testing authorization forms, and a single photograph of their daughter. I need to see Daniel Harrison. Do you have an appointment? No. Mr. Harrison doesn't take unscheduled meetings. If you'd like to submit a request through our website, tell him Jessica Morgan is here. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. Tell him it's about his daughter. The guard's expression shifted from disinterest to confusion. Mr. Harrison doesn't have any children. It's widely known. Tell him, Jessica interrupted, that Jessica Morgan from Stanford, 16 years ago, is standing in his lobby with medical proof that he does. The guard stared at her for a long moment, clearly trying to decide if she was delusional or dangerous. Finally, he picked up the phone. Jessica waited, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. 30 seconds passed, a minute too. The guard hung up. 62nd floor, executive reception. They're expecting you. The elevator ride took 47 seconds. Jessica counted each one. When the doors opened, she stepped into a world of glass, steel, and million-dollar views. A receptionist with perfect hair and a tablet guided her to a conference room with walls made entirely of windows overlooking San Francisco Bay. "Mr. Harrison will be with you shortly," the receptionist said, closing the door behind her. Jessica set the folder on the polished table and tried to breathe. She'd practiced this conversation 1,000 times in her mind on the drive here. Practiced what she'd say, how she'd explain, how she'd make him understand that she'd thought, truly thought, she was doing the right thing. The door opened. Daniel Harrison walked in wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Jessica's car. His dark hair slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. His green eyes, Emma's eyes, fixed on Jessica with an intensity that made her step back. He looked exactly like the man she'd loved. He looked like a complete stranger. "You have 60 seconds, Daniel said, his voice cold and controlled. "My assistant said you claim to have a daughter, my daughter, which is impossible because I don't have any children." "Yes, you do," Jessica's voice shook. "Her name is Emma, she's 15 years old, and she's dying." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Ms. Morgan." "Jessica, you remember me, don't you, Daniel? Stanford, 16 years ago. Quantum mechanics study group. Late nights in the lab. The week before you defended your thesis when we—" "I remember." His tone was ice. "I remember you disappeared without explanation, changed your number, transferred to MIT. I looked for you for months before I finally got the message that you wanted nothing to do with me." Guilt crashed over Jessica like a wave. "I was pregnant." The words dropped into the room like a grenade. Daniel went completely still. "What?" "I found out 2 weeks after your thesis defense. You just secured your first round of venture capital funding. Everyone was talking about how you were going to change the world." Jessica's hands trembled. "You were 24 years old with your entire future ahead of you. I was terrified and broke, and I didn't want to be the thing that destroyed your dreams." "So you just left," Daniel's voice rose. "You made a decision about my life, about our child's life, without telling me. I thought I was protecting you." "That wasn't your choice to make." Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "You took 15 years from me. 15 years of my daughter's life that I can never get back. Birthday parties, first days of school, teaching her to ride a bike, everything." "I know." Tears streamed down Jessica's face. "I know, and I'm sorry, and I have spent every day wondering if I made the right choice, but it doesn't matter anymore because Emma is dying, and you are the only person who can save her." Daniel's face drained of color. "What?" Jessica opened the folder with shaking hands and spread the medical records across the table. "She has HLH, hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. It's a genetic immune disorder, fatal without a bone marrow transplant from a biological parent. I'm not a match. You're her only chance." Daniel stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. "You're lying. This is some kind of scam. You read about me in Forbes and decided to—" "Look at her." Jessica pulled out the photograph and set it in front of him. It was Emma's school photo from this year. 15 years old, dark hair, sharp jawline, green eyes filled with intelligence and humor. Daniel picked up the photo with trembling hands. Jessica watched him see it, the recognition, the undeniable genetic truth stamped across their daughter's face. "Oh my God," Daniel whispered. "She looks like you," Jessica said softly. "She's brilliant like you. She wants to study AI at MIT. She loves quantum physics and terrible science puns. She has your mind, Daniel, your passion, your eyes. And she's in the ICU right now with her organs failing because I was too much of a coward to tell you about her until it was almost too late." Daniel sank into a chair, still clutching Emma's photograph. "I have a daughter." "Yes." "For 15 years." "Yes." "And she's dying. Without a transplant, she has less than a week." The silence that followed was deafening. When Daniel finally looked up, his eyes were red. "I want a DNA test. I need proof." "Of course." Jessica pulled out the authorization forms. I brought the paperwork. We can do it today. But Daniel, we don't have time to wait for standard results. Emma's condition is deteriorating rapidly. Every hour counts. Daniel stood, his movements mechanical. My lawyer will be present for the testing. I'll have my physician review these medical records. And when it's confirmed that she's mine, I'll do whatever is necessary. Thank you, Jessica breathed. Don't thank me. Daniel's voice was sharp. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because if what you're saying is true, I have a daughter I've never met who needs me. But Jessica, after she's safe, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about the 15 years you stole from both of us. He walked out without looking back. Jessica collapsed into a chair, relief and grief warring in her chest. The first step was done. Now came the hard part, telling Emma that her father was coming. The DNA test took 3 hours to process with Daniel's connections and money expediting what normally took days. Jessica sat in the hospital cafeteria, her coffee going cold in her hands, when her phone rang. Daniel's number. Hello. It's a match. His voice was tight, controlled, barely containing what sounded like a dozen different emotions. The DNA results. I'm her father. I know. I need to see her. Jessica's chest tightened. Daniel, she doesn't know you're her father yet. I haven't told her who you are, only that I found you and you're willing to be tested as a donor. You haven't, Daniel's voice rose. She's my daughter and she doesn't even know my name. I wanted to tell her together, when you were ready. A long pause. I'm coming to the hospital now. What room? ICU, room 407, but Daniel. I've been her father for 15 years without knowing it, Jessica. I'm not waiting another minute. He hung up. Jessica ran for the elevators. She reached Emma's room 3 minutes before Daniel arrived. Her daughter was awake, propped up on pillows, looking pale and weak but alert. Mom, did you find him, the donor? Yes, baby, I found him. Jessica took Emma's hand. But there's something I need to tell you first, about who he is. He's my father. Emma's voice was matter of fact. I figured it out. You said you'd been lying about him, said he could save me. It wasn't hard to put together. Jessica's breath caught. You're not angry. I'm too tired to be angry. Emma's green eyes, Daniel's eyes met hers. And honestly, I've wondered about him my whole life, made up stories about who he was, where he went, why he left. Her voice cracked. Did he know about me? No, Jessica's voice broke. He didn't know. That was my fault. I never told him. Before Emma could respond, there was a knock on the door. Daniel Harrison stood in the doorway, still wearing his expensive suit but looking completely undone. His eyes locked on Emma, and Jessica watched 15 years of loss and wonder and heartbreak flash across his face in seconds. Hello, Daniel said, his voice rough. Emma stared at him. At the man who was unmistakably her father, right down to the widow's peak, and the way he stood with his weight slightly on his left foot. Hi, Emma whispered. Daniel took a hesitant step into the room. I'm Daniel Harrison. Emma's lips quirked in a weak smile. I know, I looked you up, you're kind of famous. A surprised laugh escaped Daniel. So are you, apparently. Your mom says you want to study AI. Quantum AI specifically, integrating quantum computing with machine learning. Emma's eyes lit up despite her exhaustion. Your work on quantum algorithms for neural networks is basically my obsession. Daniel's face transformed. You've read my papers. All of them. The one on quantum entanglement in distributed systems was brilliant, though I think your proof in Theorem 3 could be simplified using a different approach too. She broke off, coughing. Daniel was at her bedside instantly, his hand hovering uncertainly before Emma reached up and grabbed it. You're really my dad, Emma said. Yeah, Daniel's voice cracked. I really am. Jessica watched father and daughter look at each other. Two brilliant minds. Two faces cast from the same genetic template. Two people who should have known each other for 15 years, but were meeting for the first time in a hospital room with death counting down the hours. I'm sorry, Daniel said. I'm so sorry I wasn't there, that I didn't know, that I missed everything. Mom says that was her choice, not yours. Emma squeezed his hand. Are you really a match? Can you actually save me? Yes, Daniel's voice was fierce. I'm a perfect match, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you survive this. Emma smiled. Good, because I have about 1,000 questions about quantum computing, and I'd really like to live long enough to ask them. Despite everything, the grief, the fear, the weight of 15 lost years, Daniel laughed. And for the first time in days, Jessica let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. Dr. Patel scheduled the bone marrow extraction for 48 hours later, giving Daniel time to undergo the necessary pre-transplant medical evaluations, and Emma time to receive the chemotherapy required to prepare her body to accept the new marrow. Those 48 hours were the longest of Jessica's life. Daniel barely left the hospital. He cleared his schedule with a single email: family emergency. All projects on hold until further notice. Set up a makeshift office in the family waiting room, working on his laptop between visits to Emma's room. Jessica watched father and daughter discover each other through the haze of Emma's deteriorating condition. She watched Daniel teach Emma a quantum algorithm using dry erase markers on the hospital room whiteboard, while nurses adjusted IV drips. She watched Emma make Daniel laugh with terrible physics puns that he pretended were funnier than they were. She watched them discover they both loved terrible 80s sci-fi movies, that they both ate pizza starting with the crust, that they both had the same habit of tapping their left index finger when they were thinking. And she watched Daniel look at her with eyes full of accusation and grief every time Emma fell asleep. On the second night, after Emma had drifted off during a discussion about quantum superposition, Daniel followed Jessica into the hallway. "We need to talk," he said. Jessica had been dreading this conversation. Okay. They ended up in the hospital chapel, empty at 11 p.m., silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Daniel paced in front of the altar like a caged animal. "I've been trying to understand. For 2 days, I've been trying to wrap my head around how you could make this decision, how you could keep my daughter from me for 15 years. Daniel, let me finish." His voice was controlled fury. "I've been trying to see it from your perspective. You were young, scared, you thought you were protecting my career." He stopped, facing her. "But Jessica, I would have given up everything. The company, the money, all of it, in a heartbeat, if I'd known I had a daughter." Tears streamed down Jessica's face. "I didn't know that." "You didn't ask." Daniel's voice rose, echoing in the chapel. "You made a unilateral decision that affected 3 lives, and you didn't even give me the chance to choose. Do you have any idea what that feels like? To discover you've been a father for 15 years. To meet your daughter for the first time when she's dying." "I was 23 years old and terrified," Jessica said. "You were about to change the world. I didn't want to be the one who what? Who gave me the greatest gift I could ever have." Daniel's laugh was bitter. "You're right. What a terrible burden that would have been." "That's not fair." "None of this is fair." Daniel's composure cracked. "You know what Emma told me today? She said she used to imagine that her father was a secret agent, that he couldn't be part of her life because he was protecting her from dangerous enemies. She made you the hero of that story, Jessica, the mom who sacrificed everything to keep her safe." Jessica's chest ached. "Daniel. She has no idea that the real story is that her mother decided her father wasn't worth including, that I wasn't good enough, or reliable enough, or important enough to even know she existed. That's not why I did it." "Then why?" Daniel's voice broke. "Help me understand why you thought Emma was better off without me, why you thought I didn't deserve to be her father." Jessica sank into a pew, her whole body shaking. "Because my father left when I was 6. He walked out on my mom and me, and I spent my entire childhood watching her destroy herself trying to keep us afloat, working 3 jobs, missing every school event, dying slowly from the stress until cancer finished what poverty started." She looked up at Daniel through tears. "When I found out I was pregnant, all I could think was that I was about to do the same thing to you, trap you, derail your dreams, turn you into someone who resented me and the baby for destroying your potential. So you decided to destroy it yourself instead," Daniel said quietly. "I thought I was giving you a choice by not making you choose. I thought Emma and I could build a good life on our own, that we didn't need to be anyone's burden. We're not burdens, Jessica. We're family. Daniel sat down beside her, his anger giving way to exhaustion. Family is supposed to be the thing you choose over everything else, but you never gave me that choice. I know, Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. I know, and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Daniel spoke. When this is over, when Emma is healthy, she's going to have questions about us, about why we're not together, about whether we ever could be. What do you want me to tell her? The truth. Daniel's voice was flat. That her mother loved her enough to make an impossible decision, that her father loves her enough to forgive that decision, and that sometimes love isn't enough to fix what's been broken. Jessica's heart shattered. Daniel. I can't be with you, Jessica. I can barely look at you without seeing 15 years of Emma's life that I missed. First words, first steps, first day of school, every milestone, every moment gone, he stood. But I can be Emma's father, and I will be. For the rest of her life, however long that is, I'm not going anywhere. He walked out of the chapel, leaving Jessica alone with the weight of her choices. The next morning, Dr. Patel gathered them in a conference room to discuss the transplant procedure. The bone marrow extraction from Mr. Harrison will take approximately 2 hours, she explained, pulling up images on a screen. We'll harvest marrow from his pelvic bone using a needle. It's painful but not dangerous. He'll be under anesthesia. Daniel nodded, and Emma. Emma will simultaneously undergo the transplant. We'll infuse your bone marrow into her bloodstream through an IV. If everything goes well, the stem cells will travel to her bone marrow and begin producing new, healthy blood cells. If everything goes well, Jessica repeated. What if it doesn't? Dr. Patel's expression was grave. The risks are significant. Emma's body might reject the transplant. She could develop graft-versus-host disease where the new immune system attacks her organs. There's risk of infection, bleeding, organ failure. She paused. But without the transplant, she has days at most. With it, she has a fighting chance. Then we do it, Daniel said firmly. Emma, who'd been wheeled into the meeting in her hospital bed, spoke up weakly. What are the survival rates? Dr. Patel hesitated. For HLH patients receiving transplants from matched parents, the 5-year survival rate is approximately 60–70%. So a 30–40% chance I die anyway, Emma said. Emma, Jessica started. It's okay, Mom. Emma's voice was calm. I'm a scientist, I understand probability. She looked at Daniel. This is going to hurt you, isn't it? The extraction. Daniel moved to her bedside. I've had worse hangovers. Emma smiled weakly. Liar, but thank you. Her hand found his. For showing up, for being here, for being willing to go through this for someone you just met. You're not someone I just met. Daniel's voice was thick with emotion. You're my daughter, and I would walk through fire for you. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I spent 15 years imagining who you were, making up stories, wondering if you'd want to know me if you knew I existed. I would have moved heaven and earth to know you, Daniel said fiercely. I believe you, Emma squeezed his hand. And maybe after this is over, if I make it, we can make up for lost time. When you make it, Daniel corrected, not if, when. Dr. Patel cleared her throat. We'll begin prep in 2 hours. Mr. Harrison, you'll need to change into a surgical gown. Ms. Morgan, you can stay with Emma until we take her to the transplant unit. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of consent forms, medical preparations, and gut-wrenching goodbyes. Jessica held Emma's hand as nurses prepared her for transfer, trying not to think about the statistics, the risks, the possibility that these could be their last moments together. Mom, Emma whispered, if something goes wrong. Nothing's going to go wrong. But if it does, I need you to know something. Emma's green eyes, Daniel's eyes met hers. I'm not angry about him, about you not telling me. I understand why you did it. Jessica's vision blurred with tears. Baby. You thought you were protecting both of us, and you kept me safe and loved and gave me an amazing life. That matters more than the story of how we got here. You're too good for me, Jessica said, pressing her forehead to Emma's. I'm exactly as good as you raised me to be. Emma smiled. Now go make sure Dad's okay. He's probably freaking out in his pre-op room. Jessica found Daniel exactly where Emma predicted, in a surgical gown, sitting on a gurney, staring at his hands. "She's stronger than both of us," Jessica said from the doorway. Daniel looked up. "She gets that from you. She gets everything good from both of us." Jessica stepped into the room. "And everything brilliant from you." A sad smile crossed Daniel's face. "We made a hell of a kid, didn't we?" "The best." An orderly appeared. "Mr. Harrison, we're ready for you." Daniel stood, then hesitated. "Jessica, if something happens to me." "Nothing's going to happen to you." "But if it does, tell Emma." His voice broke. "Tell her that knowing her, even for 2 days, was the greatest privilege of my life, and that I'm sorry I wasn't there for the first 15 years, but I would have been if I'd known. I need her to know that." "You're going to tell her yourself," Jessica said firmly, "when you both wake up and this is over and she's on her way to recovery." Daniel nodded, not trusting himself to speak. They wheeled him away, toward the surgical wing. Jessica stood alone in the hallway, caught between the past she couldn't change and the future she was desperate to save. All they could do now was wait. And hope that love, even when broken, could still be strong enough to heal. The surgical wing observation room was designed to be calming. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, a window overlooking a garden. But Jessica couldn't sit still. She paced in front of the glass partition that separated her from the dual operating theaters where, simultaneously, her daughter and Emma's father were fighting for a future they should have had all along. Through the left window, she could see Daniel on the operating table, unconscious under anesthesia while surgeons positioned equipment over his pelvic bone. The bone marrow extraction was brutal. Jessica had researched the procedure obsessively in the last 48 hours. They would insert a large needle repeatedly into his hip bone, drawing out the precious marrow that contained the stem cells Emma needed to survive. Through the right window, Emma lay prepared for the transplant infusion, her small body hooked to a dozen monitors, her skin pale against the white sheets. Dr. Patel's voice came through the intercom. "Extraction beginning now." Jessica watched the surgeon position the needle. Even unconscious, Daniel's body tensed as the needle penetrated bone. The procedure took 90 excruciating minutes. 90 minutes of watching them pierce Daniel's body over and over, drawing out the dark red marrow that looked nothing like the miracle it represented. When they finally finished, they'd collected just over a liter of bone marrow. Enough, Dr. Patel had said, if Emma's body accepted it. If the surgical team transferred the marrow to a processing unit, filtering and preparing it for infusion. Daniel was moved to recovery, still unconscious, his hip wrapped in heavy bandages. "Beginning transplant infusion," Dr. Patel announced. Jessica pressed her hand against the glass as they connected the IV bag containing Daniel's bone marrow to Emma's central line. The marrow looked almost black in the clear tubing, a stark contrast to the other fluids flowing into Emma's body. It took 4 hours for the complete infusion. 4 hours of watching the cells that Daniel's body had created flow into their daughter. 4 hours of praying to a God Jessica wasn't sure she believed in. 4 hours of bargaining, offering anything, everything if Emma could just survive. When the last of the marrow entered Emma's bloodstream, Dr. Patel turned to look at Jessica through the glass. "Infusion complete. Now we wait." The critical period was 72 hours. 3 days for the transplanted stem cells to travel to Emma's bone marrow, engraft, and begin producing new blood cells. 3 days during which Emma's already compromised immune system would be non-existent, leaving her vulnerable to any infection, any complication. 3 days in isolation, while her body decided whether to accept her father's gift or reject it. Jessica was allowed 5 minutes with Emma before they moved her to the isolation unit. "Hey baby," Jessica whispered, taking Emma's hand through the sterile gloves she had to wear. "You did great. The transplant is done." Emma's eyes fluttered open, unfocused from the sedation. "Dad." The word hit Jessica like a physical blow. In 2 days, Daniel had become Dad. "He's in recovery. The extraction went perfectly. He gave you everything you need." "Is he okay?" "He's going to be fine, sore but fine." Emma's lips quirked. Tell him thanks for the bone marrow, and the genetics, and the quantum computing obsession." Jessica laughed through tears. I will. Mom, Emma's grip tightened weakly. I'm scared. I know, sweetheart, but you're so strong. And you have the best medical team in the country, and you have your father's cells fighting for you now. Do you think they'll work? His cells in my body. Jessica pressed her daughter's hand to her lips. I think you're both stubborn and brilliant and too determined to give up. So yes, I think they'll work perfectly. Emma's eyes drifted closed. Love you, Mom. Love you more, baby. They wheeled Emma to isolation. A sealed room with positive pressure filtration, sterile everything, and a window that let Jessica watch but not touch. Jessica found Daniel 3 hours later in his recovery room, awake but clearly in pain despite the medication. How is she? His voice was hoarse. In isolation. The transplant went well. Now we wait to see if the cells engraft. Daniel tried to sit up and winced. I want to see her. You can't, not until her immune system starts to recover. Any infection right now could kill her. Jessica sat in the chair beside his bed. She asked about you, called you Dad. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I missed her entire childhood, and now I might lose her anyway. You won't. You don't know that. No, Jessica admitted. But I know Emma, and I'm starting to know you again. You're both fighters, you don't give up. They sat in silence for a moment before Daniel spoke again. I've been lying here thinking about everything, about the 15 years, about what you said in the chapel. Jessica's chest tightened. Daniel. I understand why you did it. I don't agree with it. I don't think I can ever fully forgive it. But I understand that you were trying to protect us both from something that terrified you. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it human. Daniel's green eyes met hers. We both made choices based on fear. You were afraid I'd resent Emma. I was afraid to look for you when you left because I thought you'd rejected me. We were kids playing at being adults, and we made a mess of things. The biggest mess, Jessica agreed. But we also made Emma. Daniel's voice softened. And she's perfect, brilliant and brave and somehow well-adjusted despite everything. You did that, Jessica. You raised an extraordinary human being. We made her together. Yeah, a sad smile crossed Daniel's face. We did, and now we get to save her together, and if she survives. When she survives. When she survives, Daniel corrected, we get to figure out how to be her parents together, not as a couple, not as people who can forgive what's broken between us, but as two people who love her more than we love our own pain. Jessica's tears fell freely now. I can do that. Good, because I already missed 15 years. I'm not missing another day. The next 72 hours were torture. Jessica lived in the chair outside Emma's isolation room, watching through the window as their daughter fought the invisible war happening inside her body. Daniel, released from his room but still moving stiffly from the extraction, joined her. They took shifts sleeping, eating, pretending to be okay for the nurses who checked Emma's vitals every hour. On day 2, Emma's fever spiked to 104 degrees. Alarms screamed. Doctors rushed in wearing full protective gear. Jessica and Daniel pressed against the glass, helpless. It could be her body fighting the transplant, Dr. Patel explained, her voice tight. Or it could be an infection. We've started broad-spectrum antibiotics. Now we wait. More waiting, more praying, more bargaining with fate. The fever broke on day 3. Emma's white blood cell count, which had dropped to nearly 0, began to climb. The cells are engrafting, Dr. Patel said, unable to hide her smile. Her bone marrow is accepting the transplant. It's working. Jessica collapsed into Daniel's arms, sobbing with relief. She's going to make it, Daniel whispered into her hair. Our daughter is going to make it. 2 weeks later, Emma was strong enough to leave isolation. Jessica and Daniel were waiting when they wheeled her out, both wearing surgical masks and gowns, but finally able to touch her. Emma looked weak, her hair starting to thin from the chemotherapy, dark circles under her eyes, but she was smiling. Hey, parental units, she said, miss me. Daniel laughed, the sound breaking on a sob, every second. Jessica hugged her daughter carefully, mindful of the central line still in her chest, the fragility of her recovering body. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck made of Dad's bone marrow. Emma grinned at Daniel. Thanks for the spare parts, old man. Old man, Daniel mock scowled. I'm 39. Ancient, Emma teased, then her smile faded. Did it hurt, the extraction? Worth every second, Daniel said firmly. They moved Emma to a regular room, still monitored, still careful, but out of isolation. She'd need to stay in the hospital for another month, possibly more, while her immune system rebuilt itself and doctors monitored for complications. But she was alive. And every day, she got a little stronger. Daniel suspended all his business travel, working remotely from a makeshift office in Emma's hospital room. He taught her advanced quantum algorithms while she recovered, their conversations flowing seamlessly between theoretical physics and terrible dad jokes that made Emma groan. Jessica watched father and daughter bond over the language of science and mathematics, creating the relationship they should have had for 15 years in the compressed intensity of a hospital room. She watched Daniel read Emma to sleep when the pain medication made her drowsy, not children's books, but papers on quantum computing that Emma found soothing. She watched Emma light up every time Daniel walked into the room, the way she'd started saying, "Ask Dad," when she had a question about physics. She watched them become family. One afternoon, while Emma was napping, Daniel found Jessica in the family lounge. "I've been thinking," he said, "about after when Emma's released." Jessica's stomach tightened. "What about it?" "I want to be part of her life, really part of it, not just video calls and weekend visits." "Of course, Daniel, she's your daughter, I would never." "I'm moving to Bayview," he interrupted. "I've already started looking at houses near yours. Harrison Technologies has offices worldwide, I can work from anywhere, and I want to be somewhere that I can see Emma every day, drive her to school, help with homework, just be her dad." Jessica's throat tightened. That's wonderful, Emma will be so happy." "There's more," Daniel hesitated. "I want joint custody, legal, formal custody. I want my name on her birth certificate. I want her to be Emma Morgan Harrison if she wants. I want everything I should have had from the beginning." "Yes, of course, whatever you want, whatever Emma wants." Daniel studied her face. "You're not going to fight me on this." "Why would I fight you on giving our daughter what she deserves? A father who loves her and wants to be present in her life." Jessica shook her head. "I already stole 15 years from both of you. I'm not taking another second." "Thank you," Daniel's voice was rough. "And Jessica, I meant what I said. I can't forgive what happened, not completely, but I can work with you to give Emma the life she deserves. Co-parents who respect each other, even if we can't be together." "That's all I want," Jessica said. "For her to be happy and healthy and loved by both of us." "Then we agree." They shook hands, a formal gesture that felt both inadequate and appropriate for people who'd created life together, but could no longer find their way back to each other. 6 weeks after the transplant, Dr. Patel delivered the news they'd been desperately hopping for. Emma's bone marrow biopsy shows full engraftment. The new cells are producing healthy blood. Her immune system is rebuilding. All signs point to a successful transplant. She smiled at the three of them, Jessica, Daniel, and Emma, who was sitting up in bed looking more like herself every day. "You can go home next week." Emma burst into tears. Daniel grabbed her hand. "Hey, why are you crying? This is good news." "I know," Emma wiped her face. I'm going to live. I'm actually going to live." "Yeah, you are." Daniel's voice was thick. "And you're going to do amazing things, change the world, probably solve quantum consciousness while you're at it." "We'll solve it together," Emma said. "I've already got some ideas about your Theorem 3 proof." Jessica watched father and daughter dissolve into a discussion of quantum mechanics, their shared language, their bond. Later that night, after Daniel had left for his hotel and Emma was sleeping peacefully, Jessica sat by her daughter's bedside and thought about the journey that had brought them here. 15 years of secrets. 2 days of revelation. 6 weeks of recovery. And a lifetime ahead of learning how to be a family fractured by choices, but held together by love. It wasn't the happy ending Jessica had once imagined. She and Daniel would never be together. The years they'd lost could never be recovered. The trust they'd broken couldn't be perfectly repaired. But Emma would have both parents. She would know where she came from. She would understand that she was loved, desperately, fiercely loved, by two people who'd made terrible mistakes but who would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. And maybe Jessica thought that was enough. 3 months later, Emma Morgan Harrison walked out of Bayview Medical Center for the last time, her hair growing back in dark curls, her strength fully returned, her future stretching bright before her. Daniel had bought a house 2 blocks from Jessica's apartment, close enough for daily visits, far enough for everyone to have space. They'd worked out a custody arrangement that put Emma first. She'd split time between both homes, but school and activities would be her choice. Emma chose to spend weekdays with Jessica and weekends with Daniel, plus Wednesday dinners where all three of them ate together, and pretended the awkwardness would eventually fade. It was messy and complicated, and nothing like the family structure Emma had grown up with. It was also exactly what she needed. On her first day back at school, Emma wore a t-shirt Daniel had designed. "I survived HLH and all I got was this lousy shirt, and my dad's bone marrow." Her friends thought it was hilarious. Her parents thought it was perfect. Because Emma was alive, healthy, surrounded by people who loved her. And in the end, after 15 years of secrets and 6 weeks of survival, that was all that mattered. Daniel kept his promise. He showed up for everything: parent-teacher conferences, science fairs, weekend breakfasts where they debated quantum theory over pancakes. Jessica learned to share her daughter with the man she'd once loved, the father Emma deserved to know. And Emma, brilliant and brave, and somehow well-adjusted despite everything, thrived. She applied early admission to MIT the following year. Her essay was titled, "The Quantum Mechanics of Family: How Uncertainty Principles Apply to Life." Both her parents cried when she read it to them. She got in. On the day she left for college, both Jessica and Daniel drove her to Boston. They moved her into her dorm together, assembling furniture and embarrassing her in front of her roommate with dual parental fussing. "You know this is weird, right?" Emma's roommate whispered. "Having both your parents here but they're not married." "Yeah," Emma said, watching Jessica and Daniel argue about the best way to arrange her desk. "But it works for us." And it did. Because love doesn't disappear because of silence. But secrets have consequences. And sometimes, the only way to save a life is to tell the truth you've been hiding, even when that truth costs everything. What would you have done in Jessica's shoes 15 years ago? Would you have told Daniel the truth, knowing it might destroy his dreams? Or would you have made the same impossible choice she did, believing you were protecting everyone you loved? This story reminds us that the decisions we make in fear can echo for decades, affecting not just ourselves, but the people we're trying to protect. Jessica thought she was being selfless. She thought she was giving Daniel and Emma better lives. But love built on secrets is a house of cards, and eventually, the truth comes crashing down. If this story made your heart race, if you felt the desperate fear of a mother watching her daughter die, if you understood the anger of a father robbed of 15 years, you're not alone. That's the power of these real human stories. They remind us that behind every decision is a person trying their best with imperfect information, and sometimes, our best still breaks the people we love most. Smash that like button if you believe every child deserves to know both their parents, or if this story reminded you that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than lies. Drop a comment below telling me, would you have told the truth? Or share your own story about secrets, forgiveness, or second chances. I read every single comment and your stories matter. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because I bring you stories like this every single week. Stories about justice, redemption, impossible choices, and the resilience of the human spirit. Stories that make you think, make you feel, and remind you that you're not alone in this messy, complicated, beautiful thing called life. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone wrestling with a difficult truth, someone trying to figure out how to forgive the unforgivable, someone who needs to know that even when we break things, we can still find a way to put the pieces back together, differently, imperfectly, but whole. This is more than entertainment. This is a community of people who believe in truth, in courage, in showing up even when we've messed up. We're building something here, A space where real stories about real struggles get told without judgment, with empathy, with the understanding that we're all just doing the best we can. Join us, be part of the conversation. Let's keep these stories alive. Because Jessica and Daniel's story isn't over. Emma's story is just beginning. And somewhere out there, someone is making the same impossible choice right now. And maybe, just maybe, this story will help them choose truth over fear. See you in the next video. Until then, stay brave, stay honest, and remember, love is always worth fighting for, even when the fight is with ourselves. Now go smash that like button, comment, subscribe. Let's change the world one story at a time.